Delusion of energy independence. So what do you mean, delusion of energy independence?
Well, it is just that. I've been looking at the Pickens Plan website. Throughout, he says, energy independence now. Sign the petition for energy independence. 64,000 people have signed the petition. The fact is that, I agree with Mr. Pickens when it comes to natural gas. The shale gas revolution is a big deal. But there are 3 points. Energy independence, this is pure hokum. The U.S.
Never going to happen.
Never going to happen. The U.S. is the world's single biggest energy producer and biggest energy consumer. The idea that we should be independent of the world's single biggest market, the global oil and energy market, is ludicrous on its face.
But they're going to cut us off, starve us.
Who's they? In 2007, look, whenever you hear anybody talk about the evils of foreign oil, grab your wallet. They want your money. That's it, period. And, I appreciate Mr. Pickens' position, but what he's asking for is welfare for billionaires. Natural gas vehicles, fine. He's the biggest shareholder. I looked at the proxy statement this morning in Clean Energy. It's a company that provides natural gas to natural gas vehicle market. I'm all for natural gas vehicles, but they are going to come into the market regardless of what Congress does. The fact is that in 2007, here are the numbers. In 2007, the U.S. imported oil from 90 different countries. We exported oil to 70 different countries. In 2009, latest EIA numbers, yes, the U.S. is a big oil importer. We're also among the world's biggest oil exporters. 2 million barrels a day average in 2009.
The point being?
It's a global market. Get used to it. We could quit buying oil to market. It's not going to. We could quit buying oil tomorrow. It won't put the Saudis out of business.
Robert, are we a net importer or a net exporter?
We are a net importer, and so are the Chinese.
By how much?
And so are the Chinese, and so are 172 other countries around the world. We could quit importing oil tomorrow. It won't make a damn bit of difference.
Wait a minute. Are we net importer by how much oil?
We're a net importer by about 11 million barrels a day.
That's it. What are Chinese?
Well, I heard you say earlier it was 4.5. I'll trust your number.
It's good.
Yeah.
What's your point?
My point? That you better get on your own resources is my point. Because
well, we're not on our own resources for iPods and movies.
What about
and cars.
fresh? What about fresh flowers? What about beer? What about bottled water, tennis rackets, tennis shoes? It's a global market. We live in an ever more interdependent global economy.
What about that?
Well, I know that you're importing oil from the enemy. Consequently, you're paying for both sides of a war, is what you're doing.
What's your answer to that?
2 of our 3 largest sources of imported oil are Canada and Mexico. Belligerent terrorist havens, not that I know of.
Oh, wait a minute. Go back. I said we're getting 5 million barrels a day from OPEC, right? Well, you have to accept that because you don't have a number, so you have to take my number.
Okay.
I'll accept it. I'll trust you.
Fair enough.
It's 5 million barrels a day. And when you look at old John Podesta's report that came out last week, State Department says 4.5 million barrels a day that we import come from countries the State Department recommends our citizens do not visit.
Sure, and I heard you say that before. The U.S. was a net crude oil importer in 1913. We have been a net crude oil importer essentially every year since 1913.
But now these are nasty dictators. Aren't they funding terrorism?
Look, the question here, I mean, and I know Mr. Pickens is a smart guy. Get a dictionary, look up the word fungible. The oil that we don't buy goes to China. It goes to Singapore. It goes to South Korea. It is a global market.
There's no question. I'm not arguing with you that. It's a global market.
Well, then then you have no point.
I have a point. When supply is capped, then as demand goes up, the only way you can control demand is with price. You agree with that?
Well, sure, but today, look at the latest EIA numbers. OPEC has a surplus production capacity. Energy Information Administration. They have a surplus production capacity of 6 million barrels a day.
But I don't believe that.
Well, okay, fine. We can disagree on the numbers. The fact is, we are not, the world, for all the discussions about peak oil and everything else, we are not short of oil. Your whole plan is to displace diesel. You're not displacing the entire barrel. You can displace diesel, you can displace gasoline. You still have to buy the crude. The crude still has to be...
It takes 4 barrels of crude to get 1 barrel of diesel.
Fair enough.
Yeah, 4 barrels of crude to get 2 barrels of gasoline.
Fine.
Okay, so diesel price is going to continue to rise because demand has now come into the picture to the point where diesel will always be above gasoline price.
Well, I thought that a year ago, too, and it hasn't happened. It's selling now at par. Even though diesel oil,
You're drowning me in inside oil business here, but
Can we talk about the wind business?
Well, I want to go back to this point. I believe in peak oil.
Fair enough.
Okay.
peak oil meaning that soon we're going to come to a point where we've got all the oil we've ever found, and the numbers will go down.
That's exactly right. The numbers will start down in 2012 or 13, that you will not be able to replace back to 85 million barrels. You have to get on your own resources, and you have only one resource that you can replace foreign oil with.
Natural gas.
Natural gas. And you are the largest in the world in natural gas reserves. You're larger.
Al Gore says the world is going to end in 2 years.
Wait a second. Al Gore says the world will end in 2 years.
Well, this idea won't work then.
So
Look, we'll move away from...
We'll move to natural gas. We'll move to all kinds of other things. When
all kinds of other things are what?
Well, when oil becomes too
I'm not
expensive,
smart enough to know.
We'll move to something else that is cleaner, cheaper, more abundant, or all of the above. You're asking for subsidies even though we're not to that point. The market will make that transition.
When you talk about subsidies, this reminds me of promises made by people pushing ethanol as a substitute for oil. And we have some clips on that. Let's bash some Republicans.
This is what we make ethanol out of.
Every gallon of ethanol that is consumed is 1 gallon less of gasoline.
But University of Minnesota researchers found that even if we devote all of America's corn production to ethanol, it would meet only 12% of our oil needs. Cornell scientists found making ethanol uses more energy than it creates. And a new Stanford study finds that ethanol isn't environmentally friendly. It releases more pollutants like ozone. Still, we spent $4 billion in subsidies on ethanol last year, because influential politicians claimed
It burns cleaner, and it creates less emissions.
Boone, why is your plan any different? People say this is going to be better. Let the market decide.
Well, you have to get it started, John.
The wind business, which Mr. Pickens has invested $2 billion in, is the electricity sector's equivalent of corn ethanol. It is a scam from beginning to end. It does not, it is, thank you.
Well, do you know how wind energy is priced?
It is not. Yes, you've explained that. Last year you said it was priced. It was uneconomic if gas was under $9. Now you say or over $9. Now you say it's $7. Fact is, wind does not displace natural gas. It increases the need for natural gas. Doesn't decrease CO2 emissions.
I'm not saying wind replaces natural gas.
Well, then why are we doing it?
I'm saying
you're doing it because you want subsidies from the federal taxpayers. That's why you're doing it.
Let him answer.
That's not true.
Well, would you do it without subsidies? Would you invest a dime in it if there weren't subsidies?
No, you're going to have help to do it.
Well, on that note, we are out of time.
No.
Okay. We are out of time.
We can't be out of
You've
time.
expanded my brain, given it some exercise. When we come back, the romance of high-speed trains.